Kevin Owens continues his stunner barrage. Randy Orton comes out of his shell. And will HBK come out of retirement to face Dolph Ziggler? Your full SmackDown Live review starts right after this. So, you guys know that we live in a world that's full of social media, technology, information sharing. What about your privacy and security? Have you guys thought about that? I take it very seriously, and that's why I purchased the Simple Proactive Privacy and Security book. It's by a military veteran, Alex Summers, who got fed up and worked to reduce the digital tracking of his family. It's the book that Silicon Valley doesn't want you reading. I mean, think about it, guys. We all make phone calls, okay? We do channel surfing, we do web browsing, we all know we're all over social media. Everything we do gets tracked. This book can help you avoid the bait of phishing attacks, remove yourself from 27 people-located websites that share our names, addresses, and other private information. There's a password manager and password generator. Protect your calls, your texts, everything. I mean, it doesn't matter whether you're using iPhone, Android, if you have a PC or a Mac. Right now, this is the book that you guys need to check out. It's only $9.99 for paperback or $4.99 for Kindle. I'm going to be putting up a link on my Twitter, which is at the WWE Podcast. So check it out. I would really recommend, if you guys want to take this privacy thing seriously in a day and age where everything is shared, definitely check this out. Again, I'll be putting a link on my Twitter feed, or just go on to Amazon and search the Simple Proactive Privacy and Security. Again, that's Simple Proactive Privacy and Security, and get you and your family secured today.
Welcome to the WWE Podcast, your place for the most passionate wrestling analysis on the web.
Just turn Roman heel. What is WWE waiting for?
When other wrestling podcasts put you to sleep, you can count on the WWE Podcast to keep you engaged and asking for more.
I've been watching wrestling for over 20 years, and that was one of the best matches I've ever seen.
This is unlike any other wrestling analysis. So without any further delay, let's get the show started right now.
Hey guys, and welcome to the WWE Podcast. It is Thursday, July 25th, 2019. And that means a co-host joins me today. And this week it is Mary Grater, one of the official co-hosts of the show. And we discussed, my God, everything. I mean, not even just the current product, but like past stuff and pre-WrestleMania stuff. We talk about the Asuka dilemma of her just kind of fading into the tag team division, the lack of tag team division depth on the women's side, the women's tag team titles, really everything. The possibility of Stone Cold coming out of retirement, why Austin Hogan never happened. Just really, I mean, we were all over the place, but I love that. And I think that it provides for a good listening experience, and hope you guys enjoy it. And any kind of feedback you have, send it to me at realwwepodcast@gmail.com or on Twitter at the WWE Podcast, where I would love to interact with you guys on a one-to-one basis. If you have anything you'd like to talk about with the show, good, bad, or indifferent, doesn't always have to be raving reviews. I'm always up for improving the show, so let me know. And again, welcome, and check out the website when you have a moment at wwepodcast.com. This show, along with every other one, will be there with articles and all other goodies. If you don't want ads and you're tired of ads, go to patreon.com/WWE Podcast. That's patreon.com/WWE Podcast. You'll get an ad-free experience of this show and all of my other shows. So it's super easy to do. Check that out. And guys, thank you once again. And I'll be back Sunday for my Wrestling Nostalgia portion of the show. I love doing that one as well, where I get to slide back into history, into the vault of professional wrestling and specifically WWE history, and discuss moments that were significant, not just for me personally, but I believe as a whole for the wrestling industry and for WWE. So I don't know what I'm going to be selecting yet. I'll tweet that out later this week, but that's when I'll be back. This is a final show for this week, but it's always a good one. So without any further ado, here is Mary Grater and myself discussing everything that is WWE this week. All right, and welcome back. Of course, right now I have one of my co-hosts, Mary Grater. And Mary, welcome back to the show. I can't believe it's been 3 weeks already. I mean, I was just thinking this before I pressed this. I'm like, has it really been 3 weeks?
I was like, yeah, I was thinking that before you called. I was like, it's been 3 weeks already. It was like 4th of July was 3 weeks ago. Like the summer is flying. I'm like in class right now too. And like I have a midterm next week and I'm like, I just went back to class like 2 weeks ago. Like, what are you talking about? Cause it's a compact course. It's like a quick 6 weeks. And I'm just like, I'm not prepared for this. So yeah, it's been a while. How have you been?
Good. Just keeping cool up here in New York, and I just realized, like, I'm looking at the calendar and I'm saying, oh my God, the next time that we talk, it's going to be the middle of August. Like,
Yep.
it's just like, I can't believe that. Yeah, the summer is freaking flying by. And I know off air we were discussing our love and hate for the Raw reunion show. I mean, I absolutely have to start there. Because some of the stuff that we were talking about off air, I really wish I had the record button going, and also probably the bleep button for some of the words that we were saying. But I really want your overall thoughts about the Raw reunion and maybe some of the things you actually did like, if there were some.
I was saying to you, it wasn't that like it was a good show. It feels it's every time they have a reunion show or Raw 25 or, they used to have like the old school set and stuff. It's just like, let's trudge out our legends here. Ooh, pop. Like, it's kind of like what Ziggler was saying. I don't know. Maybe I'm just jaded about it. It was an okay show. It wasn't terrible. I just I tuned out after like the first hour. Like, there were segments that I'd stop. I was like doing cleaning and stuff, and I would stop if I saw something on the TV. But like, I wasn't as into it, I guess, as I normally would be. I just felt kind of campy to me. It felt like overload of legends too. Like there were like a whole bunch of miscellaneous people. Like Caitlyn was there. Caitlyn's not a legend. Did you see that? Did anybody else notice that Caitlyn was like hanging out and then she was in the ring with Austin? She like still wrestling and she's only been around in the last decade, and I don't know. There was random people. I mean, the Cena stuff was great. Seeing Cena now when he comes back is actually kind of a treat. You're not getting him shoved down your throat, so you can sit back and appreciate John Cena. And I also always love when he does, the doctor. And then he did that segment with the Usos, and one of the Usos got arrested yesterday morning. And I'm not trying to laugh at him because this is becoming a pattern, and somebody has a problem, and I hope he gets it cleared because, he's a good wrestler, but it's kind of ironic that happened. But yeah, and the Austin stuff kind of was, I kind of tune out now when D-Generation X comes out. I don't know. Them getting paired with Seth Rollins, it was kind of weird. I don't know. It was a little hokey to me. But
yeah. And I will err on the side of I enjoyed the show. Do I think it was the best Raw of all time? No. Have I seen better reunion or Raw or All-Star Nights or Raw 25s or Raw 1000s? Yes, I've seen better shows with the better use of the legends than I saw Monday night. I will say, if we're going to get the negative stuff out of the way, that the 24/7 title, while most people enjoyed that whole storyline woven through the entire show, and I understand that the 24/7 title is not supposed to be taken seriously. I understand it's supposed to be all entertainment and no reality, but it took me so far out of reality. It was like watching an episode of Rick and Morty. If you guys have seen that show, it was just like you have to completely shut your brain off to even enjoy it. And I understand it was supposed to be kind of entertaining, where, oh my God, Pat Patterson is a champion again, Gerald Briscoe's a champion again, and you had some of the women even grab the belt, and I understand all that, but some of the ways that they won those championship, I mean, how many times are we going to see a behind-the-back roll-up for a pin? I can't get past the 24/7 championship, at least on Monday night when it was featured segment after segment after segment.
Yeah, I enjoyed it because I figured they were going to use the title in that aspect, like, oh, well, there's a whole bunch of legends here. Let's, put the title on them. I thought it was cool that women won the title, so now that puts out there that it's not, because people were kind of questioning at first if it was just going to be a man's title. Now we know that it doesn't have to be, so maybe somebody in the women's division sneaks up and steals the title, which I think that would be cool. I mean, in the end, the guys who have been holding the title got it back, so I feel like no harm, no foul, but I do get it. It's a whole bunch of roll-ups, they need to figure out a more a better way to execute that, like more creative ways with pins and stuff like that, because the roll up thing is totally getting overused with that title. I expect it like from like, Pat Patterson and Kelly. Jeez. When I said like random people that didn't need to be there, sorry. She's terrible. But that's how, you know what I'm talking about. It didn't bother me as much as it was bothering you, but I can see how it would bring you out.
So the Kelly deal, I mean, yes, and I don't think, the more I thought about it, I was complaining about Boogeyman being there and Candice Michelle and Kelly. This wasn't billed as an All-Star night. This wasn't billed as All Legends. This is just a Raw reunion, and they were all a part of Raw. So I don't think there was a qualification for them to have reached a certain status to be at Monday Night Raw. So I'm fine now that I look back. It wasn't billed as Legends only, Hall of Famers only. I mean, so I understand now why they were there, paying tribute to some of the lower and mid-card acts from men and women that were part of the Raw aggression era and the Attitude Era. So I'm fine with that. And the whole 24/7 deal, like, look, I'm fine with it being completely mindless to think about how preposterous it is to have certain men and women win it. And I'm fine with women being able to compete for it, too. I think that's great. I mean, that's fine. It adds a whole nother dimension of how you can make this a creative success. It was just a little heavy-handed and a little bit much for having everybody just win via roll-up. And so, I mean, whatever. I'm off the bandwagon on that one.
I can see what you're saying, though. It didn't bother me. That was probably one of the aspects. I think the stuff with Drake and his wife is really funny. So
I'll give you that. I'm enjoying Drake Maverick. Yes.
Yeah. So it didn't bother me as much as that, but I could see it. And I mean, now that you're explaining it to me like that, then it makes sense that Caitlyn was there. But like they just like kind of stuck her in there. She hasn't really been around. She was on the Mae Young Classic. And then it was just like, oh, Caitlyn's here. Like, is she, like, are they bringing her back? Like, I want to see her in the division then. Like, because I never liked when she retired, and I understand why she did. But it was just a weird, again, it just, like, seemed very, like you're saying the title changes were hokey. It seemed, the whole thing seemed hokey to me. So I just couldn't get into it as I have in the past. The DX stuff, with the click and making sure everybody was out there so, Triple H's boys can get their spotlight. I really don't care for Kevin Nash. He's another one that I don't, care for at all. And then they were, crapping on the club or the OC, which I missed why they started calling them the OC. I must have been out of the room at that point. I didn't, did they explain that?
The OC, the original click. That was
the original. Okay, all right. I don't know if they just did that for the spot for the reunion or it is like they kind of I know it's not, storyline. This is included. It's like a one-off show, but it felt like it ruined kind of the momentum that AJ Styles and Gallows and Anderson have gotten in the last 2 weeks that they've been together. So it's just, I mean, they didn't beat him up, but I don't know. And the pairing with Seth Rollins was weird. I don't know. I'm just nitpicking. So it just didn't grab me the way that everybody else was like, oh my God, this is the greatest thing. It was another reunion show. I stopped and paused for certain segments and I went about my business. The stuff with Austin at the end was great. But other than that, I that was the only reason I was watching the show was to see Austin, which I think was basically the collective of everybody anyway. So
it was, and so just a quick comment on what you talked about with DX and the NWO. Suddenly they're just an alliance. I mean, I guess for some reason they have both decided to join forces and team up against the club.
Into a super click.
yeah, it's like the super. Yeah, really, I don't understand. Maybe it's because they all do the too sweet sign. I don't understand the whole logic behind it. But yeah, you're right. It's and to be honest, I've seen D-Generation X reform so many times on all of these all-star shows and Raw 1000s, it doesn't feel special anymore. Like, I don't mind seeing it. Like, it's cool nostalgia from, when I was a teenager and DX was actually a big thing and they were a dominant faction and they were edgy and all of that. I think back to that, but at the same time, like, these aren't the same guys anymore. It's cool, but, like, I'm not sitting there going, oh my God, I can't wait. Because ultimately, either they're going to crap on whoever the current stars are and they're going to get the edge up, or they're just going to stand there and do their usual shtick and do the suck it and do all their catchphrases and all that. Just like Hogan did. Hogan comes out and it's like Hogan's greatest hits. You could have just had him record the promo before he even showed up, because there was nothing new, nothing original. It was just his greatest hits. He did his couple of punchlines, and that was that. As you said, I was there for Stone Cold Steve Austin, who was the star of the show. I mean, he was the guy that actually made it worth watching. I was sad he didn't dish out a couple of stunners to, maybe some mid-card heels that it wouldn't have really damaged anyway. I predicted that him and Kevin Owens were going to cross paths in some way, and they would team up to just kind of dispatch a couple of heels that could take a couple of stunners and give Kevin Owens the rub. I mean, that was my prediction. Didn't happen. But Austin gave some very heartfelt stories that you didn't expect, things that kind of made you pull back the curtain. And he talked about Ron Simmons. He talked about doing a podcast with Hulk Hogan and all of that, and saying we're all family. And it felt very heartfelt from Stone Cold, but not in a sappy way.
No, the Austin stuff was great. I anytime Austin tells a story, I mean, if you listen to his podcast and stuff like that, you listen. And he could go, like I said before, he can go out there and do anything, and the crowd is going to, be on pins and needles, like every word hanging on it. He just has that magic, man. He's the GOAT. And we were talking about that earlier before we got on the air, or we started recording. Everybody knows I have a problem with Hulk Hogan. So, and it's not necessarily like he just ruined everything for me, because he just doesn't know when to stop at some points. And then like all the stuff happened with all the racist stuff, which I'm not going to get into. That's a, political thing or whatever. But my point being is that like he kind of tarnished his legacy. So he came out and did his spiel, and the crowd was just like, it was a collective groan. I felt from the crowd, it was just like, well, let me tell you, you could put brother on the end of everything that he was going to say. And it just like, he's so thirsty to be validated as the greatest one of all time. And he's not greater than Ric Flair. And Ric Flair gave Austin the rub during his retirement. It is Austin. And then the glass shattered and he walked out. And he just kind of like it felt like he gave everybody a dirty look. It wasn't he was being Austin, but like it kind of looked like he looked at like Hogan. It was like what was that? Like, like this is how it's done. And like started going off in the ring, and they kept cutting back to Hogan. And it was like, you could see that like he was trying to sit there and be like, yeah, we did a podcast together. But you could also see like the jealousy in his eyes. Like he can't walk to a ring and do that anymore. It's just, there's something different about Austin doing his shtick, because it feels more real. Like, it doesn't feel like that is who Stone Cold is. Like, I don't know. So that was the highlight. I loved the stories. It was heartfelt. The last time he was on the show, he came out and didn't say a word and stunned the whole McMahon family. So it's like, you kind of got, okay, well, he did that the last time he was here. He was going to do it. I thought he was going to come out. Something was going to happen with Kevin Owens too, but, that would make sense, Matt. And WWE Creative isn't known for, making sense a lot of times. There's still, everybody's saying the Heyman era, but it's still very, very much from this week's Raw. And again, I know it was like a one-off, but SmackDown, it still seems like same formula. Nothing's really changed. I figured, Owens was going to get stunned. That's giving him the rub, because last week he tried to stun McMahon, and I don't know if McMahon was off or Owens was off, but it didn't happen. It didn't come through, and he had to like hiccup and do it again. There was a total botch there. So overall, again, Austin was great, and that was probably the best part of the show for me.
It was. I mean, anybody who thinks otherwise is fooling themselves if they don't believe Stone Cold is the biggest draw of all time in the history of sports or professional wrestling. Excuse me. And Hulk Hogan can try to make all the claims he wants. He may have burned longer, but nobody burned hotter than Stone Cold ever from 97 to 2003.
He still burns hot. Like, it doesn't, there's nobody. And there was one point when Daniel Bryan was at his peak and all this stuff was going on, where Bryan would come out and he would get that level of loudness pop. But he doesn't now. I mean, now I know he's a heel, but like even when he came back, it was watered down and it wasn't as fury ridden as it was when Daniel Bryan was at the peak back in 2014 before he won the title, because also his wife stole his stuff and ruined it. But Austin comes out and it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's still that insane. It's like the glass shattering. It's just this insane loudness that he just has this thing. I mean, it happens with The Rock too, but I still feel like Austin's pop was always bigger than The Rock's pop, and it was very close. So
yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I'm sorry, go on.
No, the Rock was never quite Stone Cold. And when you think about this, the fact that Stone Cold Steve Austin has not had a wrestling match and has been retired from the ring for 16 years, and he still comes out and gets the biggest reaction that Raw's had since the last time he came out at Raw 25, that he supersedes every single pop that the guys have been there for the last 10 to 15 years. It's just so telling of the impact that he's had, the staying power that he's had, and the fan base that continues to follow and know who and what he was. It's mind-blowing to think about that. He's been retired for 16 years. You'd never know it by every time he comes out.
Yeah, it sucks too, because like you're like, oh my God, 16 years ago, like he probably unfortunately his neck, man, and his knees, but he probably could have went if he was healthy for another 7 years, and we probably wouldn't have gotten to that horrible funk that was like WWE from 2007 to like 2014, the dark period, which, I mean, it's kind of dark now, but it was still, when I started watching again, like I was saying, in 2012, it was super bad, man. We were talking about Santino and like, again, random appearances on Monday, and man,
up until the pipe bomb.
I
said up until the pipe bomb by CM Punk.
Yeah. But like Santino showing up, I walked out of the room. Like, he's like nails on a chalkboard for me. He's by far the worst thing I've ever seen in professional wrestling. I know people might argue that and be like, oh, it's funny. He's not funny. It's not funny. But yeah. So anyway.
Well, let me ask this. So let's wrap up a little bit on Stone Cold. It's a question that everybody has probably been asked or thought about. Do you ever feel that Stone Cold would ever come back for one match? Do you think it's possible? And if he did, who would you pick?
I don't think at this point he will. I think it passed. He would have fought Punk. He wanted Punk. I mean, Punk and him, like, they kind of went back and forth about it. There was a little bit. It would have been CM Punk, and that ship has sailed. I don't think that there was anybody else that he would have came back for. I think he would have came back for CM Punk, and there was talk of it for a while when all that stuff was going on with the video game, and they did the 25 or the All-Star Raw that you brought up before, and they had that little thing going back and forth when Punk was super hot, Summer of Punk. I think that's it. I don't think he'll come back at this point. If he did, I don't know who he would. There's nobody other than Punk. I don't think there's anybody that he would wrestle. I not even Kevin Owens. No offense, Kevin Owens. I don't think he would come back for Kevin Owens. I just don't think there's somebody at that magnitude and that level for him to just come out of retirement. I think the ship has sailed. I would have thought, I think a couple years ago would have been more likely, and I think it would have been more likely when Punk was still active, but I don't think there's anybody. What about you?
What about Brock Lesnar? Because he has gone on record of saying, and kind of teasing that he would come back and whoop Brock Lesnar's ass. If you remember, the reason for that, number one, Brock Lesnar's the biggest star that WWE has, period. Regardless of if you love him or hate him, he's holding the championship hostage, all that. Because when you think back to 2002, when Austin took his ball and went home, and in Atlanta, Georgia, when Stone Cold was booked to face Brock Lesnar that night with no billing, with no build-up, and that's part of the reason Austin walked out, that was the night that Stone Cold was supposed to put over Brock Lesnar, and they never, ever had an official match. The only interaction they ever had was at WrestleMania 20 when he ended up stunning both Goldberg and Brock Lesnar in the worst match in WrestleMania history. I mean, so outside of that, they never had their match. So if you were ever going to do it, could Brock Lesnar be the guy to do it? I mean, it would be an attraction match. It would be a one-off, but I don't see any other opponent that would equal the level of Stone Cold and the fact that there is a history there that you could draw on.
I mean, it works on paper, but what's the payoff? Because there's no way that Brock Lesnar goes over Stone Cold Steve Austin. Like I don't care if he's the Beast. Like, that wouldn't happen. You can't book Austin to lose in that situation. Like, if he came back for one more match, it would be to prove that he's the greatest of all time. So he takes Brock out. Is the title on the line? Does he get the title back for one night? The only reason I say, like, I'm hesitant about Brock too is because even though we were having the discussion earlier before we started rolling that, like, I mean, he's healed. It's kind of parallel to when Michaels got hurt and had all the reconstructive surgery, and then he came back, later, and he had like a crazier run than his first, time around. He let his body heal though, so he was gone for a period of time where he wasn't, active. And Austin's been healing now for 16 years, so. But I'm still hesitant. Brock is stiff and Brock is rough, and, one wrong move on Austin's neck and all that healing goes out the window, so I guess I could see it. I just think that Brock is too big and I don't see the payoff in it. Like, cause then like you're taking down Brock Lesnar. I mean, I guess not. It's Steve Austin. Like, you could still be Teflon. I mean, you're losing to Steve Austin, but I don't know. I don't feel it, man. It's not something that bites me. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I see what you're saying, that Brock may be a little rough, but I mean, I don't recall any other time that Brock Lesnar has actually injured somebody. I think that it's the perception that he's rough and that he's just kind of loose and he's not safe, but he is relatively safe in the ring. I don't really recall anybody that he's injured in the recent past. So the fact that his neck would be an issue, I mean, maybe off all the Germans, they would need to be really careful. I mean, but anybody versus Stone Cold needs to win. So the fact that Brock Lesnar would lose is just a foregone conclusion, because I don't care who you put in that spot. If Stone Cold returned, they would lose to Stone Cold. It's just it's law, it's physics, it's science. They would have to lose to Stone Cold. So the fact that it's Brock, I mean, I just don't see how it's anybody else other than Brock if he were to come back. It has to be, because what are you going to do? You have the Rock return? Can't do that. That trilogy is long gone. I don't want them messing with that. You can't put him against Taker. I didn't like the chemistry they had even during their heyday. They just never really gelled. You can't put him. What are you going to put him against, like AJ Styles? It needs to be a massive name, and really Brock Lesnar's the only one. And honestly, I think we're probably just wasting our air at this point, because I don't see it ever really truly happening as Stone Cold continues to age. And like you said, like what's the real payoff? Well, it could be a WrestleMania payoff. It's a one-off. That's how it's billed. I mean, so I don't know. If I were going to bet, I'd say this match never happens. But could I see Stone Cold returning at WrestleMania every year or every other year to dish out a couple of stunners? Hell yeah. And that's what I want to see. And I want to see beer everywhere.
I mean, I agree with that too. It's just, again, I don't see like there's a payoff. It is a waste of breath. Like, I just don't. I don't want him to ruin his legacy either. I don't want him to mess with anything. I feel like if he was in a match, if he returned, it would have to be like an unsanctioned match, or like it would be more of a brawl than like a technical wrestling match, because, Austin was never like the biggest technical wrestler. He was a brawler. It was just punches and kicks, and I'm going to be super vicious, especially when, his injuries started to. He had to change the way he wrestled once his injuries became an apparent thing. Yeah, so it's just he couldn't be in a match with AJ Styles because AJ Styles is a high flyer. Do you know what I'm saying? To find that perfect match, again, I think that Punk would have been a formidable opponent. He would have lost, obviously, but I feel like that would have made the most sense. I just don't see him getting in it. I mean, he could get in a brawl fight with Lesnar, and while Lesnar hasn't hurt anybody, and I'm not saying that he's not safe, it's just everybody knows he's very stiff, and I just worry about people's necks. Like, when he was fighting Daniel Bryan, like, I was like gasping for air, so I don't know. I think Austin's just better off staying where he is and just being him. Like, because you also don't want to kill he has like a kind of a magic about him, because he like did have to retire early. Does that make sense? Like, he's magical.
Because he made you want, right? Like, you can't get enough of Stone Cold Steve Austin, and he left at a time where you're like, no, he left you wanting more, and you never got more, which still makes you want more. And if Stone Cold stays retired, I completely respect it, and I think there's a 99% chance that he does. I think it's just kind of these one-offs. He'll come with reunion shows. He'll come at Raw 1500. He'll come at SmackDown 1000 or SmackDown whatever. He'll be there for the big shows, for the big reunions, for the All-Star nights, for WrestleMania, maybe a Rumble, maybe the massive pay-per-views if a storyline warrants it as a special referee, although he's kind of worn out that gig. Maybe he'll come out as a special enforcer. Maybe he'll come out as, general manager for the night, or just come out and whoop somebody's ass that needs whooping. I mean, and it's not going to develop into a long-term story, just kind of a one-off to please the crowd, generate a big rating, and just make Raw feel like Raw again for a night or two. I mean, I just don't see anything outside of that with Stone Cold. But all right, let's move on. I could make a 5-hour podcast about Stone Cold.
I mean, you could talk about Stone Cold Steve Austin all day. I mean, I guess the better question, if you want to kind of segue, who's the next Austin? Will there ever be an next Austin? Will there ever be another Rock? Because Cena is Cena, but it still wasn't. I'm sorry, still not the magnitude that Austin or Rock had in their heyday. That's the question, and that's the problem with the reunion shows. Sometimes is that they not to be like Dolph Ziggler advocate. They kind of trot these legends out, and they're not making new stars. Or it's more difficult for them to make new stars. It's the same thing with what, Dean Ambrose, Jon Moxley was saying on podcasts, the legends can sit there and be like, you gotta take a chance, gotta do this, gotta do that. But it's not the same as it was in the early 2000s, late 90s. So who's the next Austin?
Well, I don't know if there will be one, and this is kind of cliche, and this has been used in promos, but I don't want anyone to be the next Stone Cold or be the next Rock, because that's an unfair standard to compare them to, and then they're not an original. You don't want a version 2.0 of The Rock. You don't want a version of 2.0 of Stone Cold, because then you're just looking at them as a ripoff of the original, and you never want that. And the comparison was made on SmackDown Live this week with HBK and Dolph Ziggler. That comparison's actually been made since forever. I mean, it's been talked about through management. Fans have talked about it, that, oh my God, he's the second coming of Shawn Michaels. And I see how that he does have some similar qualities of Shawn. He sells as not maybe as good as Shawn Michaels has. They're both somewhat the same stature and size. They both had the ability to make their opponent look really, really, really good in the ring. They're both ultra talented. I see the comparisons, but ultimately at the end of the day, I don't want Dolph Ziggler to be Shawn Michaels, because then again, you don't need to be a second version of somebody. You just be an original of yourself. I know it's super cliche and just, I don't know, not something that I would normally say, but it's true. I mean, so, and that's actually the question I wanted to ask you was, do you see an HBK Ziggler match based on what happened on SmackDown Live, or do you see maybe just HBK returning the favor to Dolph Ziggler and giving him some sweet chin music, say at SummerSlam, as The Miz and Ziggler seem to be the ones who are actually going to have a real match, and HBK's at ringside? What do you see here?
It's a weird thing, because if you follow Dolph Ziggler online, he put up pictures of, I guess, him and The Miz, and then him and Michaels, and he was like, you want it to happen, it's not going to happen, why, stuff like that. I mean, I would totally be down to watch Shawn Michaels Dolph Ziggler match. That would probably be pretty sweet. Despite if you like Dolph or not, I feel like after the travesty that was in Saudi Arabia, I mean, I heard that was a terrible match. Again, maybe he's trying to redeem himself like Undertaker did kind of with the Roman Reigns spot. It'd be interesting. I don't know if he's going to be in anybody's corner. I don't feel like the Miz needs Shawn Michaels in his corner. So if anything's going to happen with Michaels, I would feel that it would be like Michaels versus Ziggler, or maybe it's just a kick. I don't know. The whole situation with Shawn Michaels right now is really weird, because you never thought he was going to wrestle again, and then he did what he did. So, but what I was talking about before, you're right. You don't want Ziggler to be the next Shawn Michaels, or Shawn Michaels 2.0 or whatever. You want him to be Dolph Ziggler, and it's that's not really what I meant. I kind of meant like that altitude that they're at, like not who's the next Austin, who's going to get to that level on their own as their own character and be as big as that. I don't want somebody to be the next Austin, because honestly, that's what they're doing right now with Kevin Owens, and you can tell that that's what they're trying to do with Kevin Owens. Kevin Owens sneaking up on Shane and giving him a stunner is like they're trying to make Shane and Owens to be the next Vince, Austin. That's not going to happen. And you're kind of doing Kevin Owens a disservice, because Kevin Owens is great as Kevin Owens on himself. And I think Kevin Owens can get to that level, but you can't like shove him in an Austin 2.0 box. Do you get what I'm saying?
Okay, yes. So that's a different question, a much different question. And so the answer to that first part is I don't know of anybody at this point that I see on the roster currently that could get to that level. That's a level that is only reached, I think, once every 15 to 20 years. I mean, it's super hard to get to that level. And to be totally frank with you, I think that WWE wouldn't want somebody to get to that level. It has been talked about internally that, hey, John Cena is going to be the last guy that gets to be this successful. And the reason is that they don't want stars to have more leverage than they do. They want to be able to control the stars that are under their thumb, and in a way that's okay. You'll be successful, but we only want you to get to a certain level, not get to the level of Rock, Austin, and Cena, because then hey, you don't really need us. We can't dictate what you do. If you tell us you're going to go do a movie, and that's where John Cena's at, he can just come and go as he pleases, and really he doesn't have to return because he's that big. He only does it when it's good and convenient for him. WWE, I believe, and again, I've heard this isn't just me just ranting stuff off, that they don't really want somebody to get to that level because they don't have the control that they would if they get to that, imaginary level that the threshold, the ceiling that they want stars to get to. Does that make sense?
It makes sense, but like they're kind of shooting themselves in the foot then, aren't they? Like, well, they're never gonna, if they don't have somebody of that magnitude, like, and I agree, I think it comes along every once in a generation or decade or something like that. I mean, Austin and Rock happening at the same time, I don't think that'll ever happen again. Well, they have two people of that magnitude burning so bright at the same time. But I mean, the Attitude Era was a weird era because everybody kind of got a rub in during that time. But like, they're shooting themselves in the foot. They need somebody at that magnitude because they're not going to ever have, the level that they have then. Like, you could just feel when John Cena walked on, did the early segment, was part of it hokey? Yes, part of it was hokey. I don't need to see Rikishi come out there and do the stupid dance thing. I don't. I'm sorry. But was the stuff when he was doing, with Usos, that was good. But like, it already felt different. Like, the second he walked into that ring, or his music hit, felt different. It just was like, oh, holy crap, I never thought I would be saying it, but I'm like really happy to see John Cena right now. So I feel like they're shooting themselves in the foot, and with all these expectations with them going to Fox and like Fox being kind of worried and then like changing creative control and stuff like that because they know that their ratings are in the crapper, and like, there's been reports that Vince doesn't have any excuses anymore. Why wouldn't they want somebody that big? Like, I understand they don't want people leaving for movies and stuff like that, but John is like in his like golden hour. Like, he's in his 40s, dude. He shouldn't be wrestling much longer anyway. Do you get what I'm saying? So I mean, if that's what's being talked, I think it's like a stupid move by the company. You want somebody that big.
It is. Look, you're speaking a normal language. You are making perfect sense, and I agree with you. But the problem is, I mean, that WWE is more concerned about their brand than they are about the stars, and they show that on a weekly basis. It's all about the brand rather than it is about building the stars. And unfortunately for them, the truth is backwards. Because if you build the stars, it will help your brand rather than focusing on just the brand and global entertainment of WWE. they're focused on the corporate part of the brand and expanding that rather than what's actually making them successful as a brand, which is the stars. So I think that is unfortunately the logic with WWE. And rolling this back to Kevin Owens, him trying to be Stone Cold Part 2 is unfortunately what I'm seeing on a weekly basis. And yeah, I love the stunner. I think it's one of the best moves of all time. Did Stone Cold do it better? Yes. Kevin Owens needs to tighten that stunner up a little bit, and I don't know, sit down to the Performance Center, practice at live shows that are non-televised. He needs to tighten it up a little bit. But yeah, I think they're making him a little bit too much Stone Cold, and I think if they continue down that path, it's going to start to eat away at the fans and go, he's just trying to be Stone Cold. I mean, we love Stone Cold, but Kevin, be Kevin. So they need to be very careful. They're playing a dangerous game with Kevin Owens right now. It's working so far because people are like, oh, that's cool. It reminds me of Austin. I love the stunner. But at the same time, hey, wait a minute. Why can't he just be himself? So they're playing a dangerous game, and they need to start veering away from him being viewed as Stone Cold Part 2.
Yeah, they're walking a very thin line right now. Because again, as I was saying earlier, Kevin Owens doesn't need to be Austin. He's Kevin Owens. He's already that kind of, I mean, I know they're billing him as face now. He already has that anti-hero persona. You know, he's a loudmouth. He's very good on the mic. He's very in the vein of a CM Punk, when he talks like that. You know, Sami Zayn's kind of doing the same thing where they don't necessarily need to be another version of something else that's already been on. Do I think it's awesome that he's using Austin's move? Yeah, because if the guy isn't using the move, like, why not? Like, pay homage to the people before you. I've never gotten that shtick where it's like, oh, you can't use that move because that's that person's signature move. Yeah, if they're active, like Bray Wyatt coming out on Monday, that was another part that we didn't touch, and attacking Mick Foley was, unexpected. And then he used the mandible claw, and you're like, okay, that works for him. But Bray Wyatt's not trying to be Mick Foley. He's being Bray Wyatt. He's being this new version, but that move on him works. I think the stunner totally works on Owens. I know they had their issues and their concerns with the package pile driver and the pop-up power bomb that he was doing because of neck injuries, and I get that. So if you want to give him the stunner, that's great. I think it's good. But yeah, they need to just let Kevin Owens be Kevin Owens. Kevin Owens can be an anti-authority figure on his own. You don't have to, dredge up the storyline between a McMahon and, a wrestler. It's kind of like the whole thing with Stephanie McMahon. I heard for a while they were going to try to do it with Becky Lynch's Stephanie McMahon. Like, why? Like, just let Becky Lynch be Becky Lynch, who's completely fallen off her hot streak in a year, might have fallen. But that's what I'm trying to say about Kevin Owens. Kevin Owens doesn't need to be Stone Cold, and they're walking a very thin line right now with that storyline.
They are, and I think it'll work out in the end because Kevin Owens has a lot of goodwill with fans, at least in the eyes of fans that have been waiting to cheer him. We have been booing him since day one when he debuted from the NXT brand as the NXT champion, and he faced John Cena. I believe it was at Elimination Chamber. And from day one, he felt like he belonged, but from day one, he's been billed as a heel. And it's been years since then, and I think the fans are ready to say, hey, you've paid your dues in front of us. We know what you did on the independent scene. Well, some do, some don't, as Kevin Steen. And we are ready to cheer you. I mean, and there's no better way to flip a guy than have him take the stunner, adopt that as part of his finishing maneuvers, and be the anti-authority guy against Shane McMahon. But as you said, this can't last for too long because it's gonna eat at the goodwill of fans because they're just gonna view this as, well, we've seen this before, and why are they just trying to recycle a Stone Cold storyline? So they need to be very careful. One thing I also wanted to touch on about Raw Reunion, and you've given me your opinion on it. The one thing you haven't spoken about on Raw Reunion was the Bray Wyatt attack on Mick Foley. Was that something you enjoyed, didn't like, didn't expect? What did you think?
Well, as I just said, I didn't expect it. I didn't figure he would be going after a legend. Maybe it made sense for the show because it was Raw Reunion, but I liked it. I want to see where this is going, though. I figured he would have been stalking Finn Balor or something like that because, like, he did attack Finn initially, But we all know that Finn's kind of going away for a while, and hopefully when he comes back, he's a bad guy and he's with the club, which is what everybody is thinking because his character is just like going nowhere fast also. I thought it was great, and I thought him using, I don't know if this is now one of his moves, or he just used Mick Foley's move on himself, but it fits. It totally fits the persona of this new character that Bray Wyatt's doing, where he's doing an unstable kind of split personality guy, because that's what Mankind was. So use the manual claw. I thought it was a good segment. It worked. It was shocking. I didn't think it was going to happen, and when he used the claw, it was awesome. So.
And I was glad that it was the claw and not any kind of bump that Mick Foley needed to take. I don't want to see Mick Foley take anything at this point. I mean, that was the perfect way to have Mick Foley take any kind of physical punishment. Just have somebody's fingers in your throat, and then you just kind of lay down. I mean, that's the safest way to do a finishing maneuver or any kind of physicality in Mick Foley, who doesn't need to take anything. A flat back bump, he needs to do nothing.
That poor man can barely walk. I've seen him in person, and he can barely walk, man. So yeah, he just needs to chill.
Yep. And so that is a perfect and genius way to get the best out of both worlds there, and it seems like they did. So in other news, I wanted to hear your opinions too, because we haven't talked about it yet, on Kofi and Randy Orton. And while they do have a history, and WWE brought that up this past week on SmackDown with their match in 2009 at Madison Square Garden, where it was supposed to propel Kofi Kingston to that next level, it didn't. And then Kofi says, hey, well, it's because you used your influence behind the scenes to keep me down. And Randy Orton said, you're damn right I did. I mean, did that actually happen? I don't think so, but it's a great manufactured storyline it's based in truth. That this match, many people believed, was going to be the launching point for Kofi Kingston to go to that next level, and it didn't happen until 10 years later. So what do you think about these two matching up? Do you think we'll maybe see a motivated Randy Orton beyond that C+, B- guy that he seems to be for the last 10 years?
I think that it's an interesting matchup. I wasn't watching wrestling when the original feud happened, but I've heard it, Legacy and Legend and all your stuff saying right now that they had a really good thing going. It was super violent at the time, I guess, for the period. And then they just, pooped the bed on it because they just do stuff like that. As long as they stick and they do continuity, you know what I mean? As long as they continue it and they don't forget that all that stuff happened and they, I can't speak with words today. I can't think of words. As long as they put that in the storyline that's going on now, as long as they use it and it's, they continue the storyline that happened 10 years ago, I think that it has potential to be a great match. Is it going to go beyond that? Is it going to turn into a long-term feud? Randy Orton always needs something to work with. And I feel like he's, sometimes he's kind of not censored, but they quell him down a little bit, because I think that Randy would like to go off the rails more than they let him. Does that, because, all his interesting stuff, he's been very vicious. And so I feel like that's why we kind of get a C+, B- Randy Orton, because he's just I can't do what I want to do. I'm just going to, I'm here. Look at me. I'm pretty. I'm a good wrestler. Blah. So as long as they continue the storyline from Kofi 10 years ago and they use that in this new storyline, I think it has the potential to be great. I don't hate it. I don't hate it at all. So.
I don't either. I think, these two have been around a long time. There's a lot of experience between them. Randy Orton's been there 18 years. Kofi's been there 11 years. So there's, almost 30 years of experience between the two. I think that they could have a very, very good match. It could steal the show. But I think the variable and the one that we don't know that is motivated is Randy Orton, who seems to he's so damn good he doesn't have to try. And I talked about this last time on my show, but Randy Orton is that good that if he actually tried, I think people would be blown away. But Randy Orton is in this mode of kind of coasting. He's collecting a paycheck. He's making, I'm sure, 6-7 figures plus. And he is in the mode of just conserving his body, doing what he needs to do, doing enough to say, hey, good job in that match, good job. But it's not as if he's trying to be motivated to put over new talent or have that 5-star match. He just feels probably like he has nothing left to prove. He's here to just be here as long as he can and be good. and just continue to collect his paycheck. I feel like that's Randy Orton. I mean, that just feels like who he is. However, Kofi Kingston and Randy are, from all the reports I hear, actually good friends in real life. So does Randy Orton feel that extra motivation that he has not felt from his previous opponents over the last few years and actually want to put in a hell of an effort to make Kofi Kingston look like $1 million? Is that something that's in the cards? I don't know, but that's going to be the X factor, whether this match is blow away or just kind of, good match.
Yeah, everything that you're right. Randy Orton's really, really good. I never really have a complaint. I mean, sometimes, he comes off as arrogant and stuff like that, but I think that's part of his character. He's, like I said, I think he's been stifled creatively. Maybe he doesn't get to do, even though I wouldn't think that. I would think that he would have more creative pull than everybody else because he is, third generation. And at this point, like you said, he's definitely one of the highest paid people in the locker room. He's conserving his body, and it's Randy Orton. I mean, maybe because the friendship thing, maybe that'll add to it. I just don't know. Like, you don't ever know what Randy Orton you're going to get. Sometimes he surprises you, and it's a new matchup for him too. Like, you got to think about how many people they always put Randy Orton against the same people. Like, remember that period where it was like him and Sheamus all the time? Everybody's like, this match again? It got booed during one of the Raws after WrestleMania, I think, right? Or it was Rumble. There was I remember there being a famous one where they were just going nuts and booing him. So maybe it's just a spark that he has somebody that, like, he actually, cares about. It's not necessarily having to put Kofi over. I don't think Kofi needs to be put over or made look good in the ring. Like, he's always been a great in-ring technician, even before, he started getting this massive push that he currently is on. So it is. And it matters about Randy Orton. It's whatever kind of mood he's in or what he wants to do with it. But hopefully, if he is really good friends with him, maybe, and it's a new, storyline, it's a new thing for him, it's a new opponent. Like, when was the last time that Kofi and Randy faced off? 10 years ago, right? So it's not stale or anything. So hopefully it'll turn into a good thing. Obviously, it's going to happen at SummerSlam. It's going to be for the title. Randy, I don't think Randy's going to beat him. I think that Kofi's going to hold the title for a while now that this has been going on. I don't think he's a transition champ anymore. I'm confident that that's not what's going on. So hopefully it'll turn into a good thing. Again, it's just it's about Randy in this, not necessarily about Kofi.
What scares me about SummerSlam is that when you look at the lineup so far, everything that you see looks so predictable in the outcome. I mean, you have Seth Rollins and Brock Lesnar, and you're like, well, Seth's going to get the belt back. I mean, at least that's how I think most people feel.
I don't think he's getting the title back.
You don't? Nope. Okay.
I think Brock's keeping it again.
And people are going to lose their minds.
Yep. I think Brock's going to have the title until probably Survivor Series. I think that might be when he loses. I don't know. That's just me spitballing right now. It's gut instinct.
Yeah, no. Look, I mean, every time you think Brock Lesnar is going away and he's just going to go into his home or go and hide on his farm in Minnesota or go back to UFC or do whatever or just kind of just leave, he pops his head back in and pops his head back in and pops his head back in and interferes in matches you would never expect him to interfere in, and boom, the next thing you know, he's champion again.
Yeah, so, I mean, also, not to cut you off, I also think that, like, now that Heyman's in a new position, that Heyman's going to be more accessible and be around more. I think that also motivates Brock to be there because, like, they're good friends. Like, it's just like you were saying, like, with Randy and Kofi, I think that, like, Brock doesn't want anything to do with it and he wants to do his easiest thing. But, like, when you have, like, the guy that's been your manager for almost 20 years and now he's, like, kind of in charge, I think that gives motivation more for Brock to stick around longer and do more dates. He always, every time he's renewed his contract, he's always added a couple more, dates in there. So, because he's probably getting more money than God. So I think that, like, Paul Heyman being an influence more backstage also enables him to hold the title longer. I think that they're going to keep the title on him again because Vince doesn't want to take the title off of him. That's why he just put it back on him. He, the reports is that, not enough star power. Put it on Brock, so I think Brock's going to hold on to the title for not as long as he did. I don't think he's dropping it at SummerSlam. I could be completely wrong, though.
Well, you could very well be right. I mean, my concern is that if he holds it hostage again, fans are going to, I think, rebel against more WWE than Brock Lesnar. I mean, WWE is the one who are deciding to keep this championship on Brock, who's there once every 2 months. And I think that the goodwill that WWE has with fans, that whatever's left, is going to be eaten away by, once again, for the third time, him kind of running away and hiding with the belt. And it's not on Raw, it's not promoted, it's not featured, and it just is in the minds of fans that go, oh yeah, well, they have a top championship, but their champion's never here. I just think it would cause a lot of ill will with fans. And we've seen this before. We've seen it, and we know what it's comprised of. It's comprised of Paul Heyman coming out and just doing the talking for Brock and calling him the beast and calling him the Universal Champion, and that here's a spoiler, and Brock stands there and does his bounce and weird smiles, and then he never does anything on Raw, has a 5-minute pay-per-view match, ends up winning. I mean, it's just the same routine with these two, and while Paul Heyman is great on the mic, there's no denying that, and Brock Lesnar is a legitimate beast. I like and I need at this point in their careers this pair to do something different, for Brock to do something different other than just come out, stand there, look kind of awkward, do his Brock party thing. Or I don't know. He needs something, a different attribute to his gig, to his character, than just coming out there and doing the same thing over and over. He's basically done this since he returned in 2012 to face John Cena. It's getting stale, and I'm not feeling the Brock Lesnar character like I would before. And he's the biggest star, and yet I'm still disconnected from him.
The thing with Brock is that, like, when he came back and he did try to talk, like, if you remember when he first came back, Heyman wasn't back yet. And, he grabbed the mic a couple of times and it was terrible. So it's kind of like, what do you do with Brock Lesnar, though? I think, and I get all the, the blowback from the fans, and it's like, oh, the title isn't there, and he's holding it hostage, and he's never there, and he does the same thing, and Heyman does the same thing. I also feel like it kind of adds to his character. He is supposed to be billed as this unstoppable force, this beast, and they almost messed it up when he first came back by having him lose to Cena and Triple H. But that's who he is. He's just this thing, and I think it makes you hate him. And sometimes, like old school wrestling, like, the champ wasn't available all the time. Like, it had to be a special occasion for the champ to be around. It wasn't a fighting, I think it adds to his character being like this, like, because it makes you hate him, and it makes him more believable as this unstoppable force. And it's just that, like, he's so unstoppable that, like, he can't be around all the time because he'd be murdering people all the time. I don't know. That's my opinion about Brock. I understand why there is backlash, but, like, it doesn't bother me as much as it bothers everybody else. Like, it works for me. Because what do you do with Brock Lesnar? He's not a comedian. He's not, like, how do you change his character? How do you change, like, maybe Heyman needs to change his speech, but, like, I think he does that on purpose to become this grating thing. Like, when he beat this whole gimmick that, Heyman does now, that came out of when he broke the streak. Like, remember how annoying Paul Heyman was for, like, a month and a half straight? Like, my client is the client who's the client of the 1 in 21. Like, I think that's the gimmick. That's his thing, and I can't picture Brock changing his character in any sort of way that's going to make him not look like an idiot and not look like a monster and not look like this unstoppable force. He should be this unstoppable force after beating The Undertaker. But that's my personal opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I don't, maybe I should have clarified, because him doing a promo, we've seen Brock try to do a promo, and it's not pretty. It's not pretty. Brock is not a promo guy. He just speaks from his heart. Sometimes he says things out of school. It just is usually never something that is well done and polished. It's just not Brock's character. I think maybe what might add a little bit to his character is, number one, maybe showing up a little bit more. Not every week. I know that, and I understand, like, back, in the 70s and 80s, hey, the champ didn't always show up. The NWA champ didn't show up. He floated between regions. I mean, I understand that. I understand that that's back in the day when it felt more special when the champ was there. But maybe Brock Lesnar, when he does show up on Raw, can have a match maybe once every few months to make it feel on Raw that it is a special occasion. Like, oh my, Brock Lesnar's having a match on Raw? That would draw ratings. Even if it's a tag match, something. It doesn't have to be for a championship. It can just be somebody that comes out, runs their mouth against Brock, and Brock says, you know what, I'm not waiting till the next pay-per-view. Let's do this tonight. I mean, something on Raw would, number one, make the ratings go up because people would get talking on social media and go, wait a minute, Brock, what do you mean Brock's on Raw fighting in a match? Because we haven't seen that since he returned, I believe, in the last 7 years since he came back to WWE. He's had a match only on pay-per-views. So maybe that's something, a way to increase the ratings and also do something different with Brock.
Yeah, I could see that too. That would work. I mean, maybe that, look, you answered your own question. That's like probably the only thing, having him wrestle every now and then on TV. That would be different. I think that would bring in viewers and stuff like that. But again, going back to my argument, like, he is kind of a special attraction, and I don't think you give him away on TV for free. Like, that's just my opinion. People don't have to like it, but I feel like that's kind of the mystique that they've built around him. But I wouldn't mind seeing him wrestle every now and then on Raw. I just don't want it to be a weekly thing. I don't want him to be part of the regular roster all the time. I know he's the champ, but like, that's how people get burnt out too. Like, if Vince had his way, if Brock wasn't like so bigger than the company, which, I mean, like, going back to the argument of, you know, you don't want anybody bigger than the company so they can control them. Like, Brock's still in that boot right now. Like, I think like him, Cena, Orton could do it if he wanted to. I mean, he kind of does. He just doesn't do movies and stuff like that. He just goes home and hangs out with his family. But Brock should not be a regular roster person. He shouldn't be there every week. He shouldn't be wrestling every week. Like, if Vince had his way, he would have used him and abused him like he's done the Undertaker. And like, the Undertaker is not there all the time, but Vince still just keeps dragging that corpse out. Do you know what I mean? So imagine if Vince had control over Brock. Would it be the Brock Lesnar show all the time? Absolutely. 100%. It would take away. Then you would really get sick of him. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, so no, I'm totally on board with that. I mean, I do not want Brock every week. Maybe he's there once every, I don't know, 5-6 weeks, whatever, and maybe he doesn't even have a match on Raw every 6 months. Maybe he just comes out, and when he is there, on the rare times he's there, he actually does something physical instead of just standing there and smiling and getting paid $400,000 per appearance to stand there and do his little side jumper, his little whatever he does, and stand there and smile. I mean, especially if I'm Vince McMahon paying him all this money, wouldn't I want to maximize the dollars that I'm paying this guy? I mean, yeah, he can stand there and look menacing and mean and give his mean faces and all that, and yeah, that's effective to a point, but maybe once in a while we actually have Brock tear crap up. Like, if maybe he loses the belt and he just goes crazy and he tears the ring, flips the ring, I don't care. Maybe pull a Braun Strowman once in a while. Do something more than just have him stand there every once in a while. Like, I'm not asking every time, but to change things up in the routine and muscle memory that we have of Brock. Oh, well, Brock's here, cool. Heyman's going to cut an A+ promo. Brock's going to look really mean and menacing, and then Brock's going to leave and back on his flight and back to his farm in Minnesota. I mean, I just need something a little different when he's actually there, I think is my point.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. They need to mix it up. But I don't know if they're going to, because they've made this formula of this is who he is, and like, he doesn't need to do anything to entertain you, monkey boy. Like, he's Brock Lesnar. He's badass, and he can do what he wants. He's just gonna stand there and look menacing, and that's his gimmick. He doesn't need to. He doesn't, like, he's one of those guys that doesn't have to, like, prove how, like, crazy he is and stuff like that. Should they be putting him in different feuds? I think he should be feuding with Braun Strowman right now. You just brought him up. I'm over the Seth thing. Cause, like, they're trying to make it, like, one of these long-standing feuds and stuff like that. Cause this whole thing with Seth and Brock has been going back for years, you know? It just doesn't work for me. I can't believe Seth, like, unless he sneak attacks him like he has to get the title, I don't believe Seth as a formidable opponent for Brock Lesnar. I don't think that I could believe him just, like, beating him in a skill match. It's like, no, Seth's got to sneak up and get an advantage and take him out sneakily, and then that's how he's gonna he's gonna win. And they're trying to make it a feud, and like I just don't feel like it's working for me. It's not a Rock Austin. It's not a Punk Cena. It's not like something that has the longevity of being like there for a while. Brock needs new opponents. I think that would make his stuff go quicker or seem more fresh. Like hell, like after he beat the Undertaker and he held that title for so long, I said that Kevin Owens should have been the person to take him off of it, because Kevin Owens beating Brock Lesnar is believable for me. He's not as ripped as him, but he's as big as him and he's as quick as him for being a bigger dude. And I just felt like Kevin would be a good person to pull the title off of him. I didn't think they were going to go back to the Seth Rollins thing. So I would like to see Brock have different opponents where he doesn't, and not murder Kofi Kingston in Saudi Arabia like he did, or where it was Japan, wherever he murdered him in like 5 seconds. I need believable opponents for Brock Lesnar.
But I think, and while you may have some ground to stand on there, the problem is I don't think Vince McMahon believes that. I think Vince McMahon still has this ideology of what an actual wrestler looks like, their top guy looks like. He has to have the body of John Cena or be as tall as Randy Orton. And Kevin Owens having the beer gut that he does, first of all, I don't really care. Like, I think it makes him stand out. Yeah. And so, but it's true. I mean, as you talk about opponents that are believable, I believe Kevin Owens could be, in the world of professional wrestling, a formidable, believable opponent for Brock. I believe that Braun Strowman could be. But again, I don't think Vince McMahon believes that Kevin Owens could be. I mean, look at Samoa Joe. When these two finally locked up when Joe and Brock finally locked up, I think it was about a year too late. But when they finally did, I said, oh my God, I can't wait for this match. I was just, so excited to see it. And it was a very good. I really, really enjoyed the Samoa Joe Brock Lesnar match. I think that they could have done more with that. I feel like I got a little bit ripped off by only having one match in that program. I wanted more. I still would want to see more if Joe was built back up instead of just getting rolled up every week and having him lose, which is just infuriating. But when Samoa Joe said, "You escaped me, Brock," or you didn't beat me, I escaped you. However he phrased it was perfect, saying like, I don't accept the fact that I lost to you. I beat myself. I mean, so they could have done so much, and I still would love to see it. So, I mean, when you talk about a list of opponents, if Samoa Joe gets a little bit of rebuild time, hey, there's your opponent right there.
And Joe is, again, a believable opponent for him. I was excited for that match, too. And that's the problem. Like, if you're going to have Brock, like, bulldoze through people, which I'm not saying that he shouldn't, you gotta, like... and I'm not trying to be like stereotyping, like, but you got to have the smaller guys do it. You got to have them like, beat like a Kofi Kingston and a Sami Zayn. And then, even though these guys aren't small, I'm just saying on not like gigantic men, you beat those people, and then you get a Joe and you start a feud like where Joe is chasing the title off of him. And if Joe, I think it would be great if Joe beat Brock I think he could, because it also works on a mic level, because you got Samoa Joe going up against Paul Heyman. That works. That writes itself. Like, that's, Samoa Joe is, I don't care. I know some people for some reason don't like him. He is one of the best mouthpieces in the business. And he's a believable villain, like, going after, this other villain, because, like, Joe's, like, one of those guys, like, I don't care who you are, I'm going to beat the crap out of you, and I'm going to take you out, and that's because I'm the toughest SOB in the room. So it works. But, yeah, you need new opponents, and it needs to be elongated, and maybe it is their body size that is causing these feuds or these matches not to go long term, or just have a one-off, like Joe lost because he's not in shape. I mean, he's a Samoan. The Samoans are never in shape. The only one that looks like the way they do is The Rock. So, like, the Usos are in shape, but they don't have the greatest bodies in the world either. They're Samoan. Like, all the other ones that were there were not in shape. So I like to think and hope that isn't a reason. I would like to think and hope it's just on a level that Vince doesn't get it. But you could have, Kevin Owens, Samoa Joe, Braun Strowman, Bobby Lashley. I would love to see Bobby Lashley versus Brock Lesnar. It makes sense. They're both MMA fighters. Like, why haven't we gotten that? Even though, Bobby Lashley can't talk either, it works out. I mean, you should also have Bobby Lashley under Heyman, but that's another story for another day. you have big people there who they can fight. Once the Viking Raiders split up, those guys are formidable opponents for Brock Lesnar. Have him go through the smaller roster. I'm not saying that I hate the storyline with Seth Rollins, but I feel like it's gone on too long, and I'm sorry, I don't believe Seth Rollins being a formidable opponent for Brock Lesnar and, getting over on him in the ring. Brock is just so much bigger than him, and I don't care what kind of skill set you have, the weight is always a factor. Roman Reigns is a little more believable than Seth Rollins, but that's just the way I think about things. I just want Brock to have believable opponents. And again, I don't care if he shows up and he's not there, but they need to mix it up with him because it feels like he's always fighting the same person.
And with Seth Rollins, you mentioned it earlier. He, while in the construct of professional wrestling, he is being billed as a potential opponent for Brock. In real life, we all know that Brock would absolutely destroy him. I mean, if they got in the octagon, Brock would kill him. I mean, he would actually kill Seth. But the thing is, you alluded to it. I don't want to see Seth going in there and relying on low blows like he did at WrestleMania to beat Brock Lesnar. I want to see a real competitive match from somebody facing Brock. I know that Brock matches are supposed to feel different, and they're not supposed to just follow the standard wrestling WWE protocol of how matches flow, but I need something different other than the babyface Seth Rollins going for low blows on Brock Lesnar, because then it feels as if he didn't earn it. I had a problem with the way that Seth won it at WrestleMania. Okay, he beat Brock Lesnar after 3 stomps, but how did he get the advantage? With low blows. And even The Undertaker was guilty of that. I remember, I don't know if it was Battleground a few years ago facing Brock Lesnar, and he got an advantage via a low blow on Brock Lesnar. And we're like, oh my God, is Undertaker turning heel? And he didn't. But I don't need people to use the low blow to get an advantage on Brock. I mean, there's got to be another way to make it feel as if this opponent has a chance without having to go and cheat as a babyface.
Yeah, and that's kind of the problem. That's what I was saying, the littler guys, not that they're little, I just feel like, those should be the people that Brock's running through, and then there should be the bigger people who actually give him a run for his money. Triple H was able to do that, but Triple H won. John Cena, I mean, those two will never be booked to lose matches, but I don't know. There does need to be, an upgrade, I guess you could say, on Brock Lesnar. I just don't know how they go about it. Because, in Vince's mind, everything's working out the way it has to work out for Brock, and he's not going to change it because he doesn't want to lose him, and he doesn't want him running off when he has him. So he's just kind of happy where it is right now.
And you quickly talked about Triple H, but the fact that he beat Sting and beat Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania are some of the worst bookings I've ever seen at WrestleMania. It doesn't make any sense for if you just signed Brock Lesnar and you're Triple H, why are you beating Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania when Brock is going to be here for much longer than you are, and you're the COO who's going to be behind a desk tomorrow morning? And when you have Sting come back and actually have his first match in WWE, and you have him lose that match. It was some of the just most mind-boggling, and still to this day, I know it's been how many years since those matches happened at WrestleMania, but I'm just sitting there going, why? Outside of Triple H's own ego, what purpose did that serve?
I mean, and people want to be like, oh, he's not like that. That whole taking, I don't even know what to talk, I don't even know how to, explain it or coin a term for it. That whole thing was just, completely F-booked from the start. It was just you finally get Sting in the WWE, and let's just do the complete and utter opposite of what we should actually be doing. Let's just throw some spaghetti at the wall and see if it sticks. Well, of course Triple H is the opponent that makes the most sense. And this was what? Was this after Roman Reigns with Undertaker? Or Bray Wyatt? Well, it was before. Was the streak still attacked? The streak was broken, though, right? Or no?
I'd have to do some.
I would have to. I'm trying to remember when 30 was. I'm blanking. No, it wasn't the same place because the Sting was outdoors. It was whatever. I think it was the year after.
WrestleMania. It was the same WrestleMania that Seth cashed in on Roman and Brock.
Yeah. But I think
so
it was
31.
it was the year after. It was the year after the streak. If you were going to bring freaking Undertaker back after that, why wouldn't you have Sting? It was just like, I felt like not to be like, this is going to sound a little terrible, but like, it was like the person who was in creative or like who was booking this match or whatever, or like trying to come up with ideas for Sting was like deaf, dumb, and blind. Like, had no idea about any of the history, about how this is probably the biggest dream match that has ever been thought of. And, like, was just not listening to anybody and was just, like, some, like, in the back going, okay, let's just this one and this one. That makes sense. Like, I don't even know what happened. Like, when all that stuff came out, I was just kind of like, WWE logic. I mean, that's the only excuse I have there, but that was even beyond stupid, beyond WWE logic, because they had Taker in a match, I think, with Bray Wyatt that year.
Yep. And
Bray Wyatt, he lost, so it was also already burying an already buried Bray Wyatt, which you would have thought, like, okay, if he's going to beat him, but, like, why did The Undertaker lose last year? So you trot him back out anyway, and you don't have, like, the most wanted match, I believe, of all time. And I'm not saying Sting would have won or not. I'm just saying crack. Somebody was smoking crack during that whole creative process.
Well, I think I don't know how you really feel. You need to be a little clearer. I mean, you're very wishy-washy.
I don't even know how to put it into words. I'm just like spitting out stuff because there's no explanation for that. It's one of those things that you can't explain. Like, right? No. Like, that's why I'm, like, babbling and just, like, throwing words out and, like, I don't even know if that explains it. And there's no explanation to how bad and thought out and shot in the foot, like, every conundrum, cliche thing you can think of right now is...
And now it's been 5 years after that, and now they're 5 years older. Now I don't want to see it because I fear that it would be even worse than Goldberg and Undertaker. I don't want to see it now because it's too late.
It was already too late at that time too, but like if you were going to do it, like that is what you do. That is what you do. Like there are certain things that make sense in life and certain things that go together, like peanut butter and jelly, you know, like chocolate and peanut butter. Just makes sense. You don't have to really like think into it. It's just like you see like I just don't understand. It's the same thing with like how they didn't do Hogan Austin and they did Hogan Rock instead. Not that Hogan Rock was bad, but you don't put Hogan against Austin the first thing coming back? Like, why? Why? Oh, my God, it just makes me so angry thinking about these things.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes I do think about that. Sometimes I do think about Hogan Austin, and when he was facing the NWO, and he ended up facing Scott Hall, and even back then I'm thinking to myself, I was like 17 years old, and I'm like, wait, why the hell is The Rock? The Rock is a good performer. He's a Hall of Famer, one of the best of all time, but I'm sorry, he's still second-rate to Stone Cold Steve Austin. He's still the second-rate guy. Why would you not have the two top guys from their generation face off? And I know they tried to bill it as such with The Rock. And while it was a successful match, more successful than I thought it would be, their styles meshed very well for an aged Hogan. And it ended up being the crowd turning on The Rock that night and really essentially turning him heel in general. I just don't understand. I'm like, why the hell wouldn't it have been Austin Hogan? And the reasoning, and I've heard this before from Jim Ross, and I heard it on his podcast a number of years ago, is that, well, it was thought about, but they were worried that the style that Austin had wouldn't mesh well with the style of Hogan. And I'm sitting there thinking, like, I don't think people would really care so much about that in terms of styles meshing. They were still in their Austin was in his prime at that time, although
Hogan still wasn't as bad as
no,
he was fine. He could go because then again, as you were saying, the match with The Rock was fine. He was fine. But it's
Oh, I know. It still heats me up. And there is footage out there. Austin and Hogan did have an exchange in the ring. I believe it was on a SmackDown Live before WrestleMania when he came out to save The Rock after they were beating him down 3-on-1, and Austin came out and he delivered a couple of kicks and punches to Hogan. Like, they've had very limited interaction inside the ring, but how do you not see this as a bigger potential match? Like, it's like, regardless of the excuse of all styles will clash, I don't care. Their performance professionals. They will learn how to work through that and make this the biggest WrestleMania match of all time. And I think it would have been. While it may not have been a 5-star classic, I don't believe that. It's a spectacle. It is generation versus generation. It's top guy versus top guy. As they build it, it would have been Tyson versus Ali. I mean, it would have been two guys in their top guys from the generation. They could have made it so big that we would look back and go, that's clearly the biggest match of all time. Austin Hogan. Like, how is it not?
Yeah, I mean, and it goes hand in hand with Undertaker Sting. It could have been... I mean, I don't know, Undertaker might have been a shaky, but, like, it doesn't make sense that they didn't pull the trigger on it. I mean, like, I don't know if it's just, like, one of those things where WWE hates giving fan service to fans sometimes because they're such pains in the butts. I just don't, it makes no sense. Didn't they do the same thing with Flair and Hogan in WCW? Didn't they miss the boat on that one, too?
I think they did. I didn't follow the product as closely, but yes.
I think that when Hogan went over, they never had a Hogan Flair match, and it's just like, what are you doing? Like, again, these are just like mind-boggling things that, like, how did this not happen? Like, there's another timeline or another dimension where this happened, because this is just, again, this is something that's meant to be. How does it not happen? And it's just questionable decisions by whoever is running back there, who is dumb, deaf, and blind, because I just don't have any other reasoning for that stuff not happening.
I mean, if you believe in alternate universes, this happened somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
It happened in every other alternate universe and every other version of reality other than the one that we are currently living in. It happened because that is just the right thing to do. But going back all the way to what we originally talked about with Brock, yes, I'm fine with him not being there every week. I think that having him be there more may actually not be the solution, because I think what happened with Ronda Rousey was her really starting to eat at the fans, making it, the fans felt that it wasn't as special when Rousey showed up because she was there every single week and she was in matches every single week. It didn't feel as special, and look what happened to Ronda Rousey. The fans, they turned on her.
I think that's why the fans turned on her, though. I'm trying
Becky Lynch. I mean, Becky Lynch was I think the number one reason, because they said Becky Lynch. We grew up. Well, we didn't grow up, but we have followed Becky Lynch's story since she was in NXT. The misbooking she had for years in WWE, the constant start-stop with her, and then she finally turns heel, and it's like the fans were living through Becky slapping Charlotte in the face, as Charlotte was like the corporate choice, and the fans were in Becky's body going, I'm done with this. Becky finally snaps, and then she becomes the biggest babyface of all time. And then you have Ronda Rousey, who, after the welcome wore off of, oh my God, Ronda Rousey's here. Oh my God, is she going to be good? Yeah, she's pretty good in the ring. It kind of wore off of, she felt more of just this invader, even though she was at first accepted because Becky Lynch had been there much longer and had more of an organic connection with the fans.
Yeah, I mean, but I also think it was more so of it was a Roman Reigns syndrome thing. Like, they put the title on her like right away, and then they were like, "This is our gal, and she's going to be undefeated, and we're just going to push her." I think that's why the fans ended up turning on her. I don't think that if she didn't have the title and she was on TV every week, I don't think that the fans would have minded, because she was good. She's good in the ring. I don't really have a problem with it, but I think it is more so of like, okay, well, Ronda Rousey's here, and clearly, nobody can beat her. So like, well, let's just put the title on her right away. And then, she didn't like, I mean, I don't know how much the reality of her like getting crap from the fans and stuff, like she kind of turned on everybody else too. She was coming off very arrogant, I mean, but it was also, Ronda Rousey, if you followed her in UFC, which I did for a little bit, that was when I like started getting into UFC, because I was excited. There was this chick who was beating everybody up, even though she was just having matches for 30 seconds. I think that like her being a face didn't work for her, so I think they needed to change her heel, and I think people just got kind of like sick of it because she wasn't very good on the mic. She was messing up and stuff like that. They just wanted to see her be a brawler and beat people up. So I think there were a lot of semantics or things that caused the crowd to turn on her. I don't necessarily think it was because she was on TV every week.
Yeah, I mean, at the same time too. I mean, you mentioned it with her promos. I mean, she was going off the rails sometimes and talking about like millennials. I'm like, you are a millennial. Like she's dissing millennials. I'm like, you understand when you were born, right? She's talking about avocado toast and just weird stuff that she just had a quirky little like
she is
delivery
quirky
about her. She's very awkward, but I mean, it comes through in her promos, and I appreciate that because I feel like she's being genuine most of the time, which is I'm fine with. But at times it can rub people the wrong way. Of like, Rhonda, do you understand math? Like you know when you were born, and so there was a lot of like stuff like that just kind of added up and all that, and you add the Becky Lynch factor and the Roman Reigns factor, which I certainly think was a sticking point with fans, and fans did not want to see the female version of Roman Reigns, and that's what they started to feel with. Of, hey, Ronda Rousey basically just got here. You're putting the belt on her. She feels undefeated. You want to see somebody come up and slap her right in the head and beat her. I mean, because she comes from the outside, she feels entitled. She did come off as arrogant many times when they were still booking her as a face. She came off arrogant because I believe that she has a swagger about her, and rightfully so. It just all the little things week after week started eating at fans, and eventually it just seems to work out that she turned heel. And I like Ronda Rousey as a heel. I think she's better suited as a heel because she's the outsider coming in that dominated the UFC and comes in and runs roughshod, and you want to see somebody stand up and beat the holy hell out of her. And she lost, and then she goes back into hiding. So actually that kind of leads me to my question: when do you think we'll see Rousey again?
I think she's going to be back soon, unless she gets pregnant, which I know that's kind of like a rumor. I think she's going to be back sooner than later. I just don't know when. I mean, I don't think it's going to be at SummerSlam. I usually go by the big four or the big pay-per-views. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if she shows up before Survivor Series to go into the winter draw. I mean, but then again, she might show up at SummerSlam because they have, NFL to compete with. And sometimes they pull out stuff at SummerSlam trying to compete for ratings for Monday Night Football, which she'll never win. But I think she'll be back soon. I don't necessarily know when. I don't know how they're going to work it into the storyline. I do, though, at this point, want to see her take the title off of Becky. I'm kind of over the Becky Lynch run. And I don't know if it has to do with her getting paired with Seth Rollins. I don't know. She just... it's one of those things where they beat it to death, and it feels like it's super forced now at this point. It doesn't have the magic that it had when it first happened. Also going back to Rousey, I feel like the whole title scene was booked very, very badly. Asuka getting screwed kind of set a lot of pieces in motion, where I thought that Asuka was going to continue to be undefeated, and she was going to be the one to take the title off of Rousey or off of Charlotte at one point, because Charlotte was, there. I thought that maybe Asuka was going to beat Charlotte, and then Asuka was going to take the title to SummerSlam, and then, Rousey was going to win it then. And it was kind of like a newcomer undefeated thing, but they just kind of crapped the bed with booking in general for that whole entire area of the women's division during that period of time.
Asuka was the biggest piece of collateral damage out of that whole storyline. They were forcing Charlotte into that main event come hell or high water so that they could say that Charlotte main evented WrestleMania for the first time ever. And I know why they're doing it. I understand, to add it to her resume because it's never been done before. As much as I was fighting that triple threat and fighting it, and I still to this day don't agree that was the right decision, because Asuka was the real loser here. Yeah, Rousey lost her belt. Yeah, Charlotte lost her belt, and Becky stood tall, as we all expected at WrestleMania. But Asuka was the real loser here because, inexplicably, the week before WrestleMania, Charlotte gets put in a championship match with Asuka. No explanation, no reasoning, nobody explained why. Charlotte wins the belt just so they could have a winners take all marquee on that match, and it's biggest. Oh my God, it's as big as ever. At the same time, after that loss, because I've talked about this many times, where did Asuka go? She's been tanked down to the tag team division, inexplicably put with Kairi Sane, the wannabe pirate, and Paige, who we don't even know why she's there. And Asuka never complained about it, never said boo, never felt like she was, done a disservice, never said anything about it on social media, was just the good trooper. But more importantly, her character on air never said boo about it. Nothing. It's just oh, I lost my belt. It's a week before Mania. We're fine. Like, what's happening? Asuka here was the real loser.
I mean, I don't think they gave Asuka the chance to do that either, to be, quite honest with you. I mean, I know that, like, we've heard before about how Vince doesn't like people who have trouble with, English. So I don't think she had the opportunity. Asuka was like, they started off good, like, for her coming from NXT and relinquishing the title and being undefeated, and then coming on the main roster, she was undefeated, all the way. I think she was undefeated mostly all the way up until her Rumble win, because that's how I was booking it. I was like, all right, she's going to win the Rumble, she's going to face Charlotte, who had the title forever at that point, and like nobody had beaten Charlotte. And she was going to, take the title off of Charlotte, because that was the Rumble that I knew that Rousey was showing up. I just knew she wasn't going to be in the match and win the Rumble. That would have been absolutely ridiculous. So it went about the way, and I was like, all right, so Asuka's going to get the title off of Charlotte, and then, Rousey's probably going to beat her for the title at SummerSlam. That would have been fine, like that would have been her first defeat, but it was Ronda Rousey, right?
Yes.
Makes sense. That's how I thought they were going with it. And they just completely, like, again, poo-pooed the bed. Like, so after that, it just got very weird and conflicted. And, yeah, they kept, shoehorning Charlotte in. And not that I have a problem with Charlotte, but they do. They shoehorn her in because she's a Flair. Despite if you want to believe that or not. I mean, they're going to. They gave her the last name. She didn't have Flair for almost half of her career at WWE, and all of a sudden they added Flair to the end of her name. Everybody else loses their last name. Charlotte gets the last name. It's hilarious. So, yeah, Asuka got screwed, as I said, out of this whole entire thing with Rousey coming in and them just not knowing how to book her, even though she books herself. She's a strong style Japanese woman who kicks butt. That's what she does. She kicks ass. I don't understand the logic. I don't think that it would have been like a disconnect between fans. People wanted her. And then when they did do the triple threat thing, it wasn't like Asuka one of the options, and the place went freaking nuts. And then they like kind of gave her a match, and then like, they went right back to like hiding her in a corner. The whole situation, I think that is when the women's revolution or movement started to fade out really quick, because it just felt like kind of like, once again, going back to the same formula that was there earlier. Because if you've paid attention lately, have the women's matches, a lot of them, not all of them, but there's been 2-minute women matches again.
There has. It starts right now. I don't know what's going on, but it's starting to regress in terms of the women's revolution. I don't know what's going on. I'm hoping this is temporary, because they have come such a long way from where they were just a few years ago. And while we're still on the Charlotte topic, I'm sure you may have heard about the rumored and all but confirmed match between Charlotte and Trish Stratus at SummerSlam.
I saw something about Trish. I didn't know who the opponent was. I hadn't gotten that far. I've been like all over the place the last couple of days. Concerts, freaking movies, school. So I haven't been on the internet that much. But yeah, I heard that. So no, you are telling me this for the first time. I didn't check it out yet. So I don't have a problem with that match. I just hope Trish is a little better than she was in her last match.
And stay off the mic. I said this the last time. I mean, when they faced, I believe it was who did they face in a tag team match? It was Alexa Bliss and somebody else.
Well, Alexa ended up getting pulled from that match, right? Or
yeah. Oh, you're right. Yeah, she got pulled for an injury.
Originally, it was supposed to be Alexa and Trish, and I was excited about it because Trish was good on the mic back in the day. She wasn't terrible. She as long as she was being like, that's the problem. Heel Trish was always better than face Trish. So she was obviously the face of it. But it was Trish and Lita, and then it was who was it?
That's why. See, I know it was an Evolution though, right? So I mean, if I look this up, it was that Evolution.
Nia Jax? Was it? No, right? No, it wasn't Nia Jax. Who the heck was it? It was Sasha. Because Sasha, I think, had the Wonder Woman gear, right? Was it Sasha and Bayley?
So Trish Stratus, let's see here. Hold on. This is crazy. I have to look this up.
It was that much of a memorable match, guys. The listener right now. That's how
Trish Stratus and Lita versus Mickie James and Alicia Fox.
Yeah, that's how groundbreaking that match was.
My
You go
God.
with Alexa Bliss, who is pretty awesome. I'm glad she's back from injury so she can start building herself back up. And I don't have a problem with Alicia Fox. I think she's actually a great wrestler. They have just never, ever, ever given her the time of day. And like Mickie James, like it went from one extreme to another. And Trish and Lita was not on that night. You could tell the ring rust was definitely there. I mean, they've been retired for over 10 years. I'm not like expecting a 5-star match, but Trish and Charlotte has the potential. I mean, has Charlotte broken her record yet for titles?
I don't know. I think, yeah, because she's what, a 6-time?
Trish is 7-time.
7-time. Okay, so yeah, and that probably will be the next milestone for her. So, geez. But honestly, like, I mean, I'm fine with this match too, but I just don't see an outcome that Charlotte doesn't win this. I mean, it's all about the future. This is about Charlotte Flair. This is not about Trish Stratus when you look at the grand scheme of the plan here. Trish Stratus is not here for the long term. She's here to give back to the business. She's in that point of her career. Trish Stratus has to lose this match and has to lose pretty decisively to Charlotte. But I'm looking forward to the build if that's where they're going, and I believe that they are. If you listen to Charlotte Flair's promo this week, she said, I'm the greatest woman of all time, or I'm the greatest of any generation, which is a big clue to say, oh, wait, hey, who's coming back? And I'm looking all over the place, and sure enough, it is pretty much all but confirmed of Trish Stratus, and I'm fine with it. I'm fine with it. I think it adds star power. It's cross-generational. That's fine with me. I think they could put on a good match. I don't think, as you said, I'm not expecting to be blown away. It's going to be nothing more than kind of a very technically sound, probably slow-paced, well-told story of a match, and I'm fine with it. The women's division, as you pointed out, certainly needs a shot in the arm right now of just kind of like they've just spinning their wheels or even kind of going backwards. Like, and I don't want that feeling. I want them to continue to feel like things are moving, and things have stalled.
I mean, I don't want to say or hope that it has to do with Ronda bouncing for a little bit. It shouldn't, because there are plenty of people to carry that division. I just feel like it was hot, and then, like, I know this is going to sound terrible, but, like, I feel like it was hot, and Vince was like, all right, yeah, we got what we needed out of it. It can go back to, like, being, like, whatever. Like, we did our part. Like, we made it a big deal for you guys. Like, yeah, okay, now, like, whatever, booking again. It's just... it's such a thing. I think the Trish and Charlotte match is going to be good. I think, maybe Trish has had a little more timing to train and stuff like that, so I think she might actually surprise us. But it's good on paper. I mean, Charlotte is probably one of the, if not the best wrestler in the division. I mean, in my personal opinion, she's, for learning quick, she's very much like Trish. Like, Trish learned quick, but you saw, like, a slow progression with Trish. Charlotte picked it up super fast, and I think she's just gotten better, so it makes sense. The match makes sense. Do I think that Charlotte wins? It depends if they're going to have another women's pay-per-view. Trish might actually beat her, and they could drag this out a little bit. It depends on how much Trish wants to wrestle.
Yeah, my assumption is, and I think most people's assumption is, this is just kind of a one-off. And if that's the case, fine. I'm fine with it. I don't need them in a long-term program unless they have something mind-blowing in the shoot. I don't know. And again, I haven't heard anything about Lita, but this certainly can help the women's division, in a division that just needs something to kick it back into gear. And I don't want to really blame it all on Ronda Rousey not being here, and we all booed her, and I started to really start to turn on her too. I was organically just tired of seeing her. But in a good way, she was a good heel, not in the heat that's like go away heat. It's in the heat that, like, I want to see someone whoop your ass, and that's what I wanted. Ronda Rousey's naturally a heel, I think, just as Roman Reigns, I believe, is naturally a heel. But again, without Ronda here, it feels like a hole is just sitting there, and nobody's there. That Ronda Rousey can't be replaced. And I know that she's only been there for a short period of time, but she added so much to that women's division. When she comes back, I think people are going to pop at first, and then they're going to realize, oh yeah, this is Ronda Rousey. This is the Invader, the one that tried to take down Becky Lynch and talk trash for 3 months. And so it'll be I think, initial positive reaction, and then boom, I think it'll be right back to where she was, depending on who she attacks and what she does. But yeah, I'm looking forward to the women's division. I think that will be recharged at SummerSlam.
Well, I also think that when Ronda comes back, I think she's coming back with the 4 horsewomen. I think Shayna Baszler is getting called up very soon. I've seen that Paul Heyman's super high on her. So that's what it's going to be. I don't think that it's going to be a pop. Like, if it is, it's going to be a fake out. I think she's going to come back and attack somebody in the ring, and she's going to have her girls behind her. And hopefully we'll get the 4, horsewomen program versus, whatever. Could be in the middle of the Charlotte Trish match. Who knows? She could just sneak in and be like, I'm the greatest of all time. That works as a storyline. Like, screw Trish Stratus, screw Charlotte. I'm the baddest chick on the planet. I'm better than both of you. I don't care how many titles you have. So I think it works on those levels. I feel like there is a hole, but it's just been poor booking around all of it. Like, we were talking about Asuka. We were talking about Becky Lynch. Like, she was red hot when she got the whole Austin thing, the bloody face. And I think they pulled back on her a little bit. I think that they just didn't let it go. I also, heard rumors other people were writing her stuff for her. So, and I think she lost it. Her ex-boyfriend. I heard her ex-boyfriend was writing a lot of her stuff that she was, tweeting and saying. And now she's like banging at Seth. So, and I think that killed it too. They should have, Charlotte kind of got grading for a little bit, but I think that's a good place for Charlotte to be. I don't think they can do anything, They've totally booked Sasha Banks terribly. Like, where the hell is Sasha Banks? Bayley, as I've said numerous times before, I just don't think that they've pooed the bed on multiple women in that division, and Bayley's just always been awkwardly booked and stuff like that, and they didn't book her as the super baby face that she could have been. There's been like a whole bunch of misgivings on everything, like around the division. And I don't know if it's just because they got like super amped because they had Ronda Rousey and they kind of crapped the bed, or they just still look at women as the same way as they always have. I don't know if that makes sense how I'm trying to transmit it. I feel like there should be intergender wrestling. I think that helps them. I think it makes things interesting, or at least have women like going after the guys a little bit. It makes them more believable to be tougher. I'm glad that the 24/7 title is now it's established that a chick can hold it. I think that might help. I don't know. I just feel like there's just been a whole bunch of missteps from the Evolution pay-per-view moving forward. Because I'm just happy that they're bringing back legends like Trish Stratus and like Lita and stuff like that. And it's not Kelly Kelly or Candice Michelle, like when the women's division was really, really terrible. I'll admit I think that they suffered a little bit with the Bella Twins being gone, but not as much as people try to make it out to be. They had good replacements. The Iconics are better Bella Twins. But look at how they've been booked since they've been champions.
And the Iconics have done nothing with those tag team championships. Yeah. Nothing.
And they should be doing more. And they're great. And they're awesome. And they're entertainment. And this is why I go back to what I was just saying. I feel like even though they did this whole hype thing for the last year or whatever, and they trotted Steph out there and blah, 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 blah. I think it was bells and whistles to get people off their back. And then it just became an afterthought again. I don't think they had a long-term. That's my personal opinion, because that's how it feels, right?
It feels like it was just like, oh, we gave you what you wanted, but we're going to forget about it for now. We got other things and bigger things to worry about. And the tag team belts are all but forgotten, and the Iconics are a perfect team to hold them, but the problem is they're not showcasing them in any way other than just kind of in passing, backstage being obnoxious for about 10 seconds. And you're like, oh yeah, there's a women's tag team championship. We forgot about that. And there's weeks I go, oh yeah, I forgot about that. I can't believe I'm saying that for a tag team team championship that was so sought after and fans were asking for it, even though WWE tried to manufacture that movement and they had plants in the crowd that would say, we want women's tag belts. Like, that was an actual thing. Like, they tried to manufacture that movement, but there was talk and there was a need and an ask from fans for it. It's just crazy. I mean, I love the Iconics. I think the Iconics, as you just said, are better than the Bellas ever were. I mean, are they super skilled in the ring? And are they the top talent in terms of putting on 5-star matches? No, they're not. But they make up for it in their obnoxiousness and just being able to be heels that are just so well oiled together and just so done. Their chemistry together is just perfect. I love the way that they play off each other, the way that their catchphrases work. They're obnoxious. You want to see somebody beat them, and they're still holding the belts, but they haven't defended them at all since defeating Sasha and Bayley, who, after Sasha lost, went and cried in a corner and just went, boo-hoo, I can't believe the WWE took the belts off us, and she hasn't been seen since. And then you got Bayley, who's a SmackDown Women's Champion, and is coming off more like a heel than anything. I'm not enjoying the Bayley character right now. While I appreciate the fact that what they're trying to do with the Bayley character, the way she's being booked right now, I mean, listen to the crowd reaction. I don't think I'm alone here. Bayley is not getting the reaction that she is at least being, she's trying, that WWE's trying to get for her. She's fading and fading fast.
I mean, listen, Bayley hasn't ever really been my favorite character since she came up on the main roster too. So, I mean, I don't know why the title is still on her. I really thought it was a transitional thing. It's been, a couple months now. I don't know why she got rewarded after, if that, Bayley Sasha story is true. I don't know why she got it. And I might be in the minority. I never wanted women's tag titles. I thought it was a stupid idea, and I thought this was exactly what was going to happen. And we heard the rumors that they were made for the Bella Twins, and they had to retire. And, unfortunate what happened to Nikki, but thank God that Brie retired because she was terrible at hurting people. But I just never wanted them because I knew this was going to happen. There's not a bunch of women tag teams. There isn't. It's always been a single thing. It could be, but if there was more multiple, and it's you got Asuka and Kairi Sane, and it's forced. They just put them together because they were Japanese and they didn't know what else to do with them, because that's how it comes off to me. Even though they're pretty solid by themselves, I don't really care for Kairi Sane, but I'm not saying she's terrible. I know she has talent. Again, it's the women's division is an afterthought, and it is a shame that the Iconics aren't doing more, because they could be ruling a tag team division right now. I don't want them to get split up, because I think if they get split up, I don't think that they are going to survive long as solo acts. I think that they'll fall to the wayside like so many people do in WWE when, creative has nothing for you. They work together, they're a tag team, but it's just mismanaged, and I never wanted those titles because I knew this was what was going to happen. There is no women's tag division. Tell me who it is. Tell me.
We got Kairi Sane and Asuka.
And they've had one match.
Yeah.
And they just got it.
Mandy Rose and Sonya Deville.
Yeah.
Yeah, and but by the way, Mandy Rose, I don't know if you saw that piece of it this past week on SmackDown. Mandy Rose completely botched her segment with Sonya Deville. It was not pretty. It was hard to watch, but they're getting a match next week on SmackDown, and if they win, they get a tag team championship match against the Iconics. So we're supposed to see heel versus heel, I guess.
I mean, but okay, so who else? Is that it?
I can't think of anybody else. I mean, right now, I believe it's a three-woman tag team division.
Yeah, and I mean, it's not also, they've only been on SmackDown, right? They haven't gone to Raw. It's not I thought these titles were going to be back and forth. Because the women's division isn't that big, but if you're going to have multiple tag teams, why aren't you showing up on Monday Night Raw? And they've booked them as the coward heels that don't defend their title. Okay, fine, I get it. Yeah, they do that. But they're brand new titles. You have to build those things up at first, make them mean something. And it's fine that they're holding them for a while, but they're not doing anything. So it's just, I feel like it's an afterthought. I feel like it was a whole bunch of bells and whistles just to get the fans off the back, and then they just were They don't even know what they're doing with their regular stuff. So, like, why are we talking about specialty stuff like this? Do you know, like, I'm not saying that the women's division is a specialty. I'm just saying they've always treated it like a sideshow. So I feel like they're treating it like a sideshow again.
It feels a little bit like smoke and mirrors.
Yep.
And a little bit, yeah. I mean, and that's really unfortunate because they could do so much with this. But, all right. Well, one last thing I wanted to discuss with you, and then I'll toss it to you if there's anything that I missed. Shinsuke Nakamura in his Intercontinental Championship run, they seem to be rebuilding Shinsuke a little bit in terms of his credibility, in terms of his mean streak, attacking guys after matches. And what happened this week with Apollo Crews was, I think, a step in the right direction. I enjoyed the match overall. I think it was more than I could have expected it to be. Shinsuke hits him with the Kinshasa. He wins. He hits him with it again after he is already defeated. So I'm liking overall where Shinsuke's headed. It's better, certainly, than him and Rusev that were just a team that was lost in no man's land, in purgatory. So I don't know. Those are my quick thoughts on Shinsuke, where he's headed, and talent that certainly needs a shot in the arm, that's for sure.
I think I agree with everything you're saying. I hope that's what's going on, because when he had the U.S. title, it was a joke. I mean, we all know that, like, he kind of got I don't know why he was picked for the title to be dropped to from Finn Balor. Obviously, Finn Balor is, taking a leave of absence, as we've seen. I mean, but they also crapped the bed with Finn Balor's booking for Intercontinental Champion, because he was the Iconics. He's the champ, but he wasn't around. See, like, this is when it goes back to this whole argument about, like, Brock, like, not being around and defending the title. But there are titles on the shows that are around and they don't get defended. So, like, the kind of argument with, like, him holding the title hostage isn't, like, valid when the Intercontinental title isn't being, defended. The new women's tag team title isn't being defended. Like, it's kind of like, I hope they're building him back up. It seems like they're getting back to what he was doing, like the mean streak and stuff like that. But I'm hesitant to say anything about it because, he could be on the crap list next week, and we don't want to do anything with Shinsuke.
Yeah, we need a larger sample size. Like, I mean, the last few weeks, great. I mean, he's got the Intercontinental Championship. He seems to be more featured in a more prominent position. He's got his mean streak back, at least in the short term. But I want to see him go on a run that is long with this Intercontinental Championship. I don't want to see him lose it at SummerSlam. I want to see Shinsuke rebuilt and reimagined in the minds of fans as a legitimate top guy that can still put on 4+ star matches, even 3-star matches at this point. And Shinsuke, I believe, is capable of that. I mean, if you look what he did in New Japan, my God. And the guy that came over here, at least if you compare the two, is a shell of what he was in Japan for whatever reason. So if you're going to pull the trigger on Shinsuke, much like Samoa Joe, the time is now to do it. I'm not saying he has to be the main event of WrestleMania. I'm just saying if you want him to be a Intercontinental Champion that you remember and that you respect and that you are you can connect with, it's time to pull the trigger on Shinsuke and give him opponents that he goes through, he can have good matches with, and have a long reign, meaning at least through Survivor Series.
Yeah, I agree with all the points you're saying. I mean, as a side note to all this, because I don't have anything really add. I agree with everything you're saying. That's what they have to do. I don't think Vince gets Japanese wrestling, and I don't think he ever has. Like, he just has a bad track record with booking Japanese stars, because you're right. He was a huge star in NJPW and all these other places. Look what happened to Kenta when he came over here. He just does not get it. And I don't want that to come off as a racist thing, because I don't really think it is. I think he just doesn't understand it. Like, he's too Americanized to, like, just, like, kind of be like, okay, this is how they were over there. Let's, like, just book them the same way over here. Like, I don't understand. Does that make sense to you?
Vince McMahon is in his WWE bubble,
yes,
and nothing outside that bubble is really reality. Everything that's inside the WWE bubble is what is is right and the way we do things is right. Everything outside it is just kind of a sideshow circus. What we do here is real. The way we do it here is real. We're going to WWE-ize him. And when they take the WWE style and try to conform it to years and years and years of him being so successful in New Japan, it doesn't always translate successfully in terms of trying to transform him into what they envision him being. So I think it's just Vince McMahon stuck in his Vince McMahon WWE world and bubble that is all that exists and is all that is right.
No, I mean, that's fair too. I mean, I guess it's kind of the same thing, right? Like, he just doesn't, unless it's like his shtick, he just does not get it. And, you know, the problem is that it doesn't translate for everybody. It works for some, you know, but that's what, everybody's different. That's what makes people great and terrible at the same time. Like, everybody's different, you know, like if everybody was the same, it would be a pretty boring place. But some things don't translate to other people. It's like, you know, some people aren't made for college, you know, and they're forced to go to college and it doesn't work for them. Some people are better at just like getting a job, getting a trade and stuff like that. So like WWEing or whatever term you said, can you say it again?
It was hard. I actually had to I had to slow my brain down because it's hard to say. Like, I'm sure there's a better phrase, but I said WWE-izing.
WWE-izing. It's a good term. I like it. But like doing that for everybody, it doesn't work for everybody. Like so it could be just that he doesn't understand Japanese people or Japanese wrestling, or it just needs to be shoved through this WWE filter. You can't do that to everybody. Like, it just doesn't work. And then people who are super talented, like Asuka, and like, you know, it's happening to Kairi Sane. Like, how long has Kairi Sane been on the friggin' main roster? And where is she? I mean, her gimmick is so stupid. But, I mean, she's a great wrestler. I'm not taking away her in-ring performance. I don't. But her gimmick is just God terrible. It makes no sense. So
it doesn't make any sense. It's almost like community theater where they just were like, think of something wacky and crazy. Well, I'll be a pirate. Well, why? What does this have to do with anything? Is it part of your culture? Do you guys like pirates? Like what
pirates
is this?
Pirates aren't nice either and cute. Pirates are mean and gross and dirty. So
and
if you're gonna
do you think when you actually realize what pirates, how they viewed women and what they did with women, like if you dig into that deep, and I'm sure I'm going too far, but at the same time, like it's not that far of a stretch to go, what are you doing? Like, how does this relate to you? Is it just something you're like, it's wacky and crazy, it's got to have a gimmick, I'll just be a pirate? Well, why?
Yeah. And if that's the case, I don't like it because like you shouldn't just like pick something because it's wacky and zany. So, but yeah, it doesn't work for everybody, so I guess it goes by the wayside, but it's not like just, you know, included or excluded to, it's probably not the word I'm trying to look. I'm having a terrible time with words today. Japanese wrestlers, he applies that to everybody. So, you know, he did it to Dean Ambrose, like he did it to CM Punk, like he's done it to multiple wrestlers that have good talent. Like, you know, he kind of did it to Cesaro when Cesaro first came up, when he had Oksana as his valet. Oh boy, that's a bad name to bring up. She was terrible. Anyway, but that's what I'm saying. This whole like, we're bringing these new people, so like Vince doesn't have his paws in it. Vince always is going to have his paws in it until he's dead, and he's the crypt keeper, so he's never going to die.
I know, and I'm not wishing. I'm not wishing harm on Vince McMahon.
No.
It's just the fact that, like, I'm really not. Like, everything that he's done in the sports entertainment business is just incredible. He is the most successful promoter of all time. There's no denying that. It's just a fact of like, hey, like I think it's just time to move aside and let somebody else take control of the creative and let things be. But you know that's never going to happen. Vince McMahon's body may be aging, but his mind is frozen at age 15. I mean, it's just the way it is with the way his humor comes across on TV is not changed. He's 70 years old and he will still find farts and bathroom humor funny and sophomore pranks funny. And I mean, it's just the way Vince McMahon's brain will forever be wired.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I still laugh at like 15-year-old boy jokes and I laugh at certain words, but I'm also not like scripting a television show and booking wrestlers. So, but the way it comes off when he does it just does not come off as funny. So I don't know. Vince, I'm not wishing him poorly or ill harm or anything like that too, but it's like, it's one of those people that, like, you just know it's just not.
He will never give up control. He's the alpha male, damn it. I mean, that's Vince McMahon. That's Vincent Kenny McMahon. He's the alpha male. He actually will admit he's a redneck, but he is a guy that will never, ever give up control so long as breath is going in and out of his body. It's just not happening.
Yeah. He's probably going to be doing computer commands from the hospital when he's on, like...
oh, yeah, just, like, on life support or something.
He's going to be the mystery general manager.
Oh God!
God!
He's the anonymous Raw general manager.
Bring it back when he's in. Oh man, this is terrible.
No.
Okay, we need to end.
It was Hornswoggle. Apparently, it was Hornswoggle the whole time.
No, you know that's BS too.
It's such a crap storyline. They didn't even know where they were going with that. It was just a way to oh yeah, we never wrapped up that loose end. Say it was Hornswoggle. Yeah.
Oh my God. Nonsense. Okay, we need to end this podcast before we go on bad things that Vince McMahon has done and what could possibly happen in the future when he's a part cyborg computer.
And maybe I'll rate that like an explicit podcast because there's no way we can have that conversation in a PG environment. So, well, Mary, thank you so much for joining me. I'm going to let you get to the rest of your night. I got to go to bed because I got work in the morning. But thank you so much for joining me. But before you go, let everyone know where they can get in contact with you.
Hey guys, so you can follow me on Twitter at Mare, MARE_Bear, BARE, and my Instagram is at PopInster11, and come follow me on Twitter. I have an active word with New Jersey Transit. I talk wrestling and Buffy, and usually I put up funny gifs for people to laugh for the most part.
You do, and one of them made me laugh the other day. I forget what it was, but I was just laughing at something you put up. I couldn't remember what it was. It was probably
me like retweeting something my brother did, because my brother had he does beat stuff into the ground, but sometimes he puts up stuff and I start laughing. So I try to keep it light. There's some serious stuff in there, but for the most part, I like making fun of people on Twitter or making fun of stuff. So, because everybody's got to laugh, you know what I mean? The world's too serious right now.
Yes. Why so serious? Yes. Well, thank you so much, Mary, for joining me.
And before you know it,
it'll be 3 weeks before you know it, and then we'll be heading into the fall. So thank you so much for coming on.
All right. You too. Have a good night. Thank you for having me, as usual. It's always a pleasure.
All right. Take care.
Okay. Good night.